Alright, so another legacy of Emperor Justinian was Justinian's Code. And this is sort of just a set of laws that Justinian was responsible for making. Basically, he just reformed the laws of Rome. And what he did that was sort of revolutionary was he actually set up a committee to come up with these laws. So, like it says here, it set up a commission or committee to collect, revise, and organize all of the laws. So they pulled together all of the laws of Rome, revised them, organized them into books, and the result was the Justinian Code. And by the 1100s, the Justinian Code reached much of Western Europe, and monarchs started to model their own laws on its principles. And even laws that we still use today find their basis in Justinian Code's laws. And you'll see a little bit more of the Justinian Code in a few minutes when I have you work on something, okay? Alright, so he used these laws to unify the empire. The emperor of the Byzantine Empire was seen as Christ's co-ruler. So basically, he and Christ sort of, according to their religion and according to his subjects, he and Christ were sort of the same, but Christ was in heaven and the emperor was on earth. So that made him head of the church on the earth as well. So some strengths of the empire were its economy. So we had a strong central government that was able to exercise its control over an economy that was really well off because of where it was in the world and how trade kind of made its way through. Like in most civilizations, peasants formed the backbone of the empire, so they worked the land, provided the soldiers, paid the taxes, basically everything that you need to make a civilization. So economy and trade flourished in the East, while the economy of the Western Empire and Rome was still struggling. So they had what we call a Byzant, and the Byzant was the golden coin of the Byzantine Empire. And we have found this coin in China. We've found it in all parts of the Mediterranean. We found it in India. So it's obvious that the Byzantine Empire, their coinage, their gold, their money, meant something in places other than the Byzantine Empire. So that's a sign of a strong economy, if your money means something outside of your own civilization. So we also had a strong military, so strong soldiers, strong ships, strong sailors that protected the empire. And the secret weapon for the Byzantine Empire was Greek fire. And I'll see if I can find a short video on that. But basically it was a liquid that when thrown at an oncoming enemy or, onto a ship, it would ignite whatever it hit but could not be put out with water. So it wasn't normal fire, so it couldn't just be damped out with water. I'll see if I can find a video on that to kind of illustrate that point a little bit more. Alright, so like Beyonce says, girls run the world, and Empress Theodora was no exception to that rule. So she was actually born the daughter of a bear keeper. So she was the daughter of a circus performer at Constantinople's Hippodrome, which was sort of like their zoo, their circus, their sort of entertainment area. And Theodora was herself an actress. Justinian saw her and absolutely fell in love with her, fell head over heels for her. But because of her status, he couldn't marry her. So what he did is he elevated her status to a high class and married her as soon as possible. And Empress Theodora was a very strong woman. She became Justinian's main advisor, his co-ruler, his kind of commander in times of war. And it's said that she actually had almost the same amount, if not more, power to rule in the Byzantine Empire than Justinian did. So she would challenge the emperor and also pursued her own policies, especially policies that pertained to women. So one thing that she did is she got more fair settlements for women who were going through divorces, and sort of offered women protection even though they weren't married to men. So that's sort of what she did for her fellow women. And sort of a famous quote from Empress Theodora is when she and Justinian and the rest of the Byzantine Empire were under siege during a revolt. Emperor Justinian wanted to flee the city, and in response to that, Theodora says, "Emperor, if you wish to flee, well and good. You have ready the money, the ships, and the sea is clear, but I shall stay." And she says she accepts the ancient proverb that royal purple is the best burial sheet. So Theodora is kind of one of those kick-butt women throughout history. This is a mosaic of her right here. She's said to be very beautiful, so it's no wonder that Justinian did all he could for her. Alright, Christianity in the Byzantine Empire. So there were several different sort of sections of Christianity in the Byzantine Empire, and that led to differences in practices, which would ultimately lead to dysfunction in the church. So, in the East, the emperor controlled the church affairs and appointed the head of the church. So, the Byzantine Christians actually rejected the Pope's claim to authority over all Christians. And we know that in the western part, in the Roman city, that popes were supposed to have authority over most Christians. And then Greek was the language of the church in the Byzantine Empire, whereas Latin was the language of the church in the Western Empire. So those were sort of some differences, but they weren't enough to really split the church. What did split the church is the dispute over icons. And icons are basically just images used in the worship of the Lord. So these are some images that may have been in the church that were causing some of these issues. It's just pictures. It wasn't like they were worshiping the pictures. It was just more that they were used in the ceremony. So by the 700s, the emperor outlaws the use of icons. Because it actually does violate one of the 10 commandments that God gave Moses, the one against "thou shalt not worship false idols." That one, it does violate those commandments, and this sort of sets off some violent battles in the empire because a lot of people enjoyed using these icons in the church, mainly because a lot of the followers were illiterate, meaning they couldn't read. And so priests and other religious leaders found it helpful to use these icons to teach about Christianity. So in 1054, another split occurred, and this is known as the Great Schism. And the Great Schism just basically translates to sort of a great divide. The Byzantine Church became known as the Greek Orthodox Church, and the western branch of the Byzantine Church became the Roman Catholic Church. So there's sort of a distinctive difference between the two. Alright, so the Byzantine legacy. Basically, Byzantium, which turned into Constantinople, is an enduring symbol of Roman civilization. And the influence of this city spreads across Europe, where a ton of people and rulers sort of adapt the rule of Emperor Justinian. And his predecessors and followers adapted sort of the Byzantine lifestyle, the government, the society, and then sort of the creation of an entirely new culture. So that Greek, that Roman, Hellenistic, and Christian beliefs sort of create an entirely new culture. And also their contribution to the arts. So, like I just showed you, these absolutely gorgeous golden pictures. So the art that had religious tones that the Byzantines were coming up with influenced Western art from starting in the Middle Ages to even up until now. And the icons actually gave viewers a sense of a personal relationship because they knew what they looked like, they had a face, they could tell who they were, and they sort of formed personal relationships with these religious figures. And they brought scenes from the Bible to real life. So this is an icon or a mosaic of Jesus. This is obviously the Virgin Mary and Jesus. And then I think this is supposed to be, St. Peter, maybe, I think is who that's supposed to depict. But don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely for sure. Okay, so that is it for the lecture for today. So if you'll move on to the next block, please.